So, good morning, everyone. My name is Jesse, and I am with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. For those who don't know, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. Very excitingly, we're doing a bit of all three today. We're joined by 6 classes from across North America, so I'm going to give them a chance to do a bit of a shout-out. We've got Mrs. Rubis's grade 4 from New Rochelle, New York. Yeah! Who are very, very excited. We've got Miss Miles, grade 3s from Johnson City, Tennessee. We've got Mr. Baudouin's grade 4s from Guelph, Ontario. We've got Miss Painter's grade 8 from Salem in Virginia. Like one kid is like super high pitched in that class. Okay, singing competition later. We've got Miss Conway's grade 5 from Orland Park, Illinois. And last but not least, we've got Miss Briggs grade 5 from Asheville, North Carolina. Awesome. Of course, the reason you guys are all here today with us is for our speakers. We're joined live from Tanzania and Pakistan by Hamera Aisha and Gill Braulik, who work on the Indus River dolphin and conserving it and understanding it and mapping its population in Pakistan. It's a marvelous piece of work, and today I'm going to, without further ado, I'll pass it over to them to share their work. Gill, you're going to start us off, correct? Yep, you're good.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, hi everybody. I'm so happy to be here. This is super exciting. So my name is Gill. I'm from the UK originally, but I've spent about the last 20 years working on Indus River dolphins in Pakistan, along with colleagues like Hamera, who will talk to you later. So the coolest thing about Indus River dolphins is that they are so different from everything, all other animals, and that's why I find them so intriguing. Most people love dolphins. They are, really interesting, charismatic animals, but Indus River dolphins are in their own class. They are really, really different and very endangered. So that's one reason why I find them so interesting, why I'm so passionate about working on these animals. Plus, I also love Pakistan, so the two things go together. It's a long love affair of loving the dolphins and the place in which they live. So I have a little presentation. I'll show you some photos so that we know what we're talking about. Let me, hang on, share my screen with you. And I've got a little video as well so that you can actually see what these animals look like, because they don't look like other things that you might have seen before. So there we go. That's an Indus River dolphin. So they're brown. And you can see, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but right here is where the eye is. And so they basically have almost no eye. So they're essentially blind. And they have this really long rostrum. And so they don't look at all like other dolphins, but they're still big creatures. They're like 2 meters long, and they live only in rivers. So they never go to the sea. In fact, there's Indus dolphins 2,000 kilometers from the ocean. Almost in the foothills of the Himalayas. So these guys have never seen the sea in their lives, not for many, many generations. Why are they so special? Well, I think that they're super special because, firstly, they only live in rivers. They're also very different to all other marine dolphins. If you look at the tree of life, marine cetaceans diverged from other mammals around 30 million years ago. And these were one of the first whales and dolphins to evolve. So actually they're genetically and biologically quite different from all the other whales and dolphins. In fact, they're quite similar to sperm whales. I don't know if you guys are familiar with sperm whales, but the giant whales that live in the sea, in fact, are more similar to these guys or evolved around the same time. So they're very ancient, and because of that, they also behave quite differently. So I already said they're blind, but they swim on their sides. So this picture in the middle, like these dolphins live in very brown, turbid water. The rivers are really murky. And it was only when the dolphins were taken and put in captivity, this middle picture, that we could actually see what they were doing underwater. And then we realized that they're actually swimming on their sides all the time. So the one on the bottom there is like dragging its fin along the bottom and swimming on its side and moving its tail side to side a bit like a fish. They also, the picture on the left is the skull, and they have these big bony crests on the top of the skull. And those you don't see in any other creatures. And they think that they are there to help them direct sound. So dolphins use sound to communicate and to find out about their environment. And because rivers are such an unusual place, you know, they're shallow and there's all kinds of things floating in rivers and the banks are falling in, that is a very complicated and quite a risky environment for such a big animal to live. And so they have this very complicated way of finding out about what's going on around them. And then the other thing is that they're so endangered. And my passion is to work on conservation and trying to save endangered species. The world is changing so fast. And there are these incredible animals that we almost know nothing about, and they're going to disappear before we've even discovered the basic details about their lives. So we're talking about dolphins. I'm sure most of you know are mammals. They're not fish, even though they live their whole lives in water. They're in fact more similar to us than they are to fish. So they're warm-blooded. They give birth to a single live baby every few years. And they breathe air. There's a hole on the top of the head called a blowhole, and so all dolphins and whales will come up to the surface of the water and take a breath, and they have lungs like us. The babies, when they're born, feed on milk from the mother, and the milk is really thick and fatty, and means that so it's more like cheese than milk. And they're also very smart. They're very intelligent, and we're only just beginning to understand how sophisticated and complex their languages and their social bonds are with each other. But it's something similar to those that we have as humans. And then because these guys don't have eyes, there is, or virtually no eyes, but all dolphins and whales use sound to find out about their environment. And so they make whistles and they make clicks. And those things help them to see using an acoustic image. So I don't know if you're going to be able to hear very well. We tried this earlier, but I have a recording of the sounds that dolphins make. This is not a river dolphin, actually. It's a sea dolphin. But I'm going to play it to you so that you can hear kind of the noises that they make all the time. I hope you can hear. Here we go. Hang on. So basically, I'll do it myself so that you can hear it anyway. But basically, it's a bit like bats that also use sonar or echolocation, they call it. And they make clicks. So it's like going and listening for the echo. And that enables them to be able to kind of see in a different way than we do. Oops. So this particular dolphin, we're talking about the Indus River dolphin today. So the Indus River dolphin lives in the Indus River, and the Indus River is found only really in Pakistan. So Pakistan is at the end of that red arrow. There's India on the right and the Middle East on the left, and below it is the Indian Ocean. And here you can see the Indus River is the one on the left, and that's in red, and the Ganges River is the one on the right. And they basically drain the Himalayas, so Mount Everest and the Karakorums, and the biggest mountain range in the world gives water for some of the biggest rivers in the world. So these are really, really big rivers, really wide, like 2 kilometers wide, and really brown, full of sediment from the mountains. And we have this really interesting map that was made. This map was made more than 150 years ago. And I think it's one of the coolest maps ever. This guy, John Anderson, made the map. And he just became really fascinated with the dolphins that he could see in the river that was right near his office. This is in the 1870s. And he wrote letters to people who lived all over India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and just wrote to all these different communities and outposts and said, please tell me about the dolphins in your rivers. Are they there? What do they look like? When are they there? What season are they there? And he got this incredibly detailed replies. And based on that, he made this map. So now we know the red lines show where dolphins used to be found more than 150 years ago. It's just, I think it's so interesting how it seems like quite such a simple thing, but this is such an incredibly valuable piece of information for us today. If you now look at this, the Indus, so this is a map of Pakistan, and the Indus River is the one that runs all the way down the left side. And then there's a network of rivers coming in from the right that are all the big tributaries, and they're also huge rivers. And so the thick blue is where the dolphins were found 150 years ago. So they used to swim freely through these giant rivers. It's about 3,500 kilometers of river. That's the line where the northern limit was by the mountains and the southern limit was by the sea. And then that takes us to today, and the situation is quite different. So all these black dots are dams, basically, that have been built on the Indus. And these particular dams, they're called diversion dams. They divert water out of the river for irrigation so people can grow crops. And so the river is completely changed. And the dolphins are now stuck in between all of these different dams. This is a picture of, it's a gated dam. So the one on the big picture shows there's normally at least 60 gates on these structures. And they've been there for at least the last 60, 70 years. And there's a close-up of one of the gates. So you can see that is not anything that a dolphin is going to want to swim through. And this is an aerial photo of one of these dams. So the black arrow shows the direction the river's flowing. And then if you look, there's a line across the river, that's the barrage. And then there's lots and lots of canals that come off the river, and all the water is pushed into the canals. And they go for hundreds of miles and irrigate fields so people can grow cotton and sugarcane. And downstream of the river, all that white is sand. And so there's very, very little water left. And in fact, the Indus is a bit like the Colorado River in the US, which doesn't reach the sea. In fact, it gets less and less water as it goes downstream. So that's a big problem if you're a dolphin. So I just wanted to show you, I've got a little video so that you can actually see what the dolphins look like when they surface, because I think it's all very well to talk about it, but it's a very different thing to actually see. And they're really beautiful, incredible creatures. So there's going to be, it's about a minute. There's no volume, so I'm just going to talk. And but at least you'll see a little bit what the river looks like and how the dolphins look when they come to the surface. Oops. So this is the river, and there's a boat, a traditional boatman. So here we go. Here are the dolphins. And there's Sucker Barrage. You see how vast the river is. And these are the local communities that live on the river, that have lived there for hundreds of years. And fishing is a threat to the dolphin. It's just beautiful footage of these animals surfacing. It's very unusual to see such beautiful pictures. You can see how there's no way a dolphin would want to move anywhere near those kind of structures. So they're trapped between these big dams in little pockets, isolated from each other. Okay, so I hope that I don't know if you could hear the volume or not, but for me this river is such a magical place, and these animals are so incredible that they're so far from the sea, and they occur nowhere else on Earth, and they look so different and they behave so differently, and so nothing captures the magic of this place like actually seeing the videos and the people of the river. So, after construction of all of those dams and diversion of the water, the dolphins are now isolated in only the sections of river that have the dark blue. So they've disappeared from 80% of the places that they used to be found. So all of our conservation efforts are now focused on those few remaining areas. These areas by the yellow arrows. And there's we estimate around 2,000 dolphins remaining. And then these areas with the red arrows, there's very, very few, just a handful, 5, 10, 15. So really the future of this species is focused on those. That is about 600, 700 kilometers of river. So one thing, just skipping back, so that all of these tributaries where the dolphins used to live, we know that they've disappeared. So one project that we did when we started out was to try to understand why have they disappeared from all these different places, like they used to be there. So if we can understand why they've gone, maybe we can do something to save the remaining ones. So we went to all of those places where the dolphins have disappeared, and we talked to the oldest fishermen that we could find from every fishing community, and we went and asked the fishermen, can you introduce us to your grandfathers, to the oldest fishermen in the town, because we want to ask them about dolphins and how the rivers here used to be. And we talked to them and said, please, will you tell us what you remember about when were there dolphins here when you were a boy? Do you remember your father telling you about there being dolphins? And it was such an amazing experience. And based on that, we built up this picture of how the dolphins declined across the country. And so the blue on this map is where the dolphins are still found, and the red places are where they disappeared in the 1980s, which was quite recent. And then the yellow and the orange is about the 1960s and 70s. And then the green was even longer ago. So you can kind of see that it's like a domino effect. They sort of disappeared from upstream, and then they kind of disappeared in the next one down, and then they disappeared in the next one down. And so we started to understand how the range was shrinking over time because of these dams. So that's my kind of introductory summary, and I'm happy to answer questions later, but I want to, Hamera is my colleague in Pakistan, and we've worked together for, I think, at least the last 5 years, and she's the person who's actually living in Pakistan, who's working day in and day out with the dolphins, with the communities who are seeing the dolphins every day. So I kind of provide a little bit of the scientific perspective, but she's the person who is really on the ground making the difference. So she has lots of interesting stories about communities and people and conservation, what people are actually trying to do to save these dolphins.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Gill. And Hamera, yeah, just demute your mic at the top, and then whenever you're ready, go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much, Dolphin and Gill, for the very useful information on the dolphin. It's always fascinating hearing you talking about them. And yes, dolphin happens to be a passion of Gill, and ever since I've started working with them, I just love them. They are just so magnificent creatures. Once you've started working with dolphins, you just can't love any other species. So I'll just build up on what Gill has started with, and will tell you a few stories on how we are working with the dolphins on ground in Pakistan with their conservation. So I'm just going to be sharing my screen here, and I'll begin with this presentation. I hope everyone can see this.
Yep.
Uh, so this is a map of Pakistan, which Jill has just showed you with the distribution range of Indus dolphin. So now, if you look at this map, the blue line is basically the river system in Pakistan. And those dotted lines basically they represent different territories and provinces in Pakistan. Like in the US, you have different states, and these boxes are basically showing you how the dolphin populations are separated from each other because of the construction of those gated dams that Jill has spoken about, those barrages. So we have six barrages in Pakistan, and amongst those we have five different dolphin populations separated from each other, started from the upper reaches of the Indus River and to the very end of the Indus River in here. And if I just show you a map in a little bit more specific area, so this is the area of Indus River between Gudu and Sakhar barrages, and that's where we have got the highest number of dolphin population of about 1100 individuals. And the area is small itself, it's about 154 kilometer, but historically this has been the biggest host of the dolphin population for us in Pakistan. And that is where most of the work that we have done in Pakistan for the conservation of this species stays focused on. That doesn't really mean that we haven't worked on the upper reaches of the Indus, but this area really needs a special attention, and the reason comes in the next slide. Now, this slide basically shows you a couple of issues that Jill has mentioned when she was showing you that documentary of Indus River dolphin. Dolphins are mammals, as Jill mentioned, and they cannot really stay underwater all the time. They need to breathe air, and like you and I, so they'll have to come to surface to breathe. And if there is a fishing net, which unfortunately is a major source of living for many people who catch fish from the Indus River, if there is a fishing net which is set to catch fish, and if that dolphin gets trapped into it, it unfortunately cannot escape. And what happens for a dolphin is if it's escaped down there, it cannot come out on the surface to breathe, and that's where it starts to die. So the picture here in which a person is holding a baby dolphin, a dolphin calf, was from 2016, where the fisherman must have found out a dolphin is stranded and it couldn't do anything to take it out. So it just cut its rostrum, which is its long snout, its beak, and threw it back into the water. And this is one of the continuous challenge that we are facing with the river dolphin conservation in Pakistan, and which is why we have to be on the ground all the time to make sure that we are here to support the dolphins conservation. How do we do it? I'll just get back to it. But before I'll show you another issue, Jill has just told you about this huge irrigation system that we have in Pakistan, for which we have built different barrages, especially for the Indus River dolphins habitat. We have got six barrages constructed. These are the gated dams which are there to regulate water, to store water so that it can be distributed to different agriculture areas for irrigation purposes. So we are a predominantly agricultural dependent country, and which is why we use a lot of water from the river for the irrigation purposes so that the crops can grow. But what happens with the dolphins is, since these canals are linked to the Indus River, and these are usually stays open, but sometimes they close the canals, and then the Indus River is not always full of water. There are some seasons in the year when there is good amount of water, but then there are a few seasons where there is a limited water in the river, and we call them dry period of the river flow or the low flow season. So what happens with the dolphins is, if there is a canal which is not open for the irrigation anymore and the gate is closed, but there is a dolphin there, so eventually the water starts to drop down in amount, and dolphins just get trapped in there. So there is no food for them, there is not sufficient water for them to swim, so they just get stranded. And if there is nobody there, if there is no WWF or our colleagues from other organizations there to physically pick them up and bring them back into the water, which is we call the rescue program, they would eventually die. And similarly, when there is low flow, low water in the river, sometimes there are small pools of the water in the rivers where dolphins cannot come out, and that's where they need a lot of help from us. So these are the two main threats, in addition to every other problem that dolphins are facing, that really needs a continuous and immediate support for the conservation aspect. So yes, Jill has rightly mentioned that we've been working for a long time on the conservation of the species. Gill was amongst the pioneers to start the standard survey research methodology and a lot of other research aspects of Pakistan that we are building upon. And she's the one who started the first comprehensive assessment of the dolphins. And thanks to that research, that after every 5 years, we count the dolphins following the same method. And now we know that until now, the Indus River dolphin is showing a stable trend, rather it's increasing in number, which is a good news for a species which is endangered, and it's very unique to Pakistan. To do dolphin conservation work, our work involves a lot of engagement because Pakistan happened to have a unique geographic structure. There are different provinces, which means states in the US. So each province has its own wildlife protection related force. They would have their own legislation. But then, how do we make sure that people talk to each other? So, for this particular stretch of the river where we have the highest dolphin population concentration, the gated dams are regulated by the irrigation department. The Environmental Protection Agency is responsible to make sure that the river doesn't get dirty for many pollutants. Then there is a wildlife department which is responsible for the protection of dolphins. But how do we make sure that they all work together and talk to each other so that we know that irrigation tells us when there is a canal closure period so people can go look for dolphins if there is any stranding, or if there is an illegal fishing going on, wildlife department knows. So we have set up this unique network of many other departments and institutions which are working on the environment in the Indus River under this a big umbrella of Indus River Dolphin Monitoring Network, where everybody who has anything to do with the river comes and sits once in a month with us and tells us, okay, I see there is some parts of the river where pollution is going on, so let's just go do something about it. Or there are some people who are catching fish illegally, let's just go do something about it. Or we have spotted a few dolphins in the barrage where the canal is closed, we need to rescue it. So that's how we communicate information, and we keep on monitoring the river into the smaller boats with the community networks so that we make sure that there is no dolphin dying. So what and in addition to that, there is basically a team of experts from WWF, from the wildlife department, from the local communities, like the people that you are looking into this picture, especially in the water, they are all from the local communities, but they are trained and they are passionate enough to help in the dolphin conservation. So we have this dolphin rescue program, which is basically there to protect dolphins in case if they find any stranded in any canal, or if they find them entangled in a fishing net. There is this team train which goes into the water, catches dolphin, bring them back, and release them into the main river body from the far, far away areas of the river, smaller tributaries, and to the irrigation canals. So starting from the year 2000, we have continued with this program. And once we have rescued a dolphin for this, the team is specialized. They capture the dolphin, they bring it back into an ambulance. Yes, an ambulance for a dolphin, which is very similar to the ones in which you carry the patients, but it is modified for the dolphins to be able to stay safe in them. And Jill has mentioned the acoustics because they use their sonar system to echolocate. So which also means if you take them out of the water, you travel them around before you move them into the water. You need to make sure that they don't get disturbed with the traffic noises and everything. So this ambulance service is a soundproof. It has a water supply tank, which makes it sure that we keep the dolphin moist, so that it doesn't get more stressed. And then by the time it reaches to the main river body, we release it there. So starting from the year 2000, so far, with the help of colleagues from the Sin Wildlife Department, from other institutions, with the local communities, we have been able to save 135 dolphins who were stranded into the canals or into the fishing nets, and they were sent back into the main river safely. I mean, this number looks very small, but if you compare it with a population of about 200 individuals, 135 individuals who were saved makes a big difference to contribute to increase the population and to sustain the population. And then there are a couple of pictures that I've put together for you just to show you that how much effort and how much dedication and passion it does take for people to do it. So the picture on the left is basically a newborn dolphin calf which got separated from the mother, and the person who's holding it is basically a community watcher who's been working with us for a long time in this slightly upper reach of the Indus River at the Gudu Barrage. They were monitoring the mother for a long time, and they knew there was something wrong, and they found the baby and they released it near where the mother was. And then there is a big dolphin which a team of WWF and then the local fishermen were able to rescue after watching it over for 6 months' time, because they knew the dolphin is in the shallower body, it's not moving back into the river. So let us just see and wait unless the dolphin really needs a help, and then we will help it and we will bring it back into the main river body. And we do a lot of engagement things, because apart from the science, dolphin conservation takes a lot of effort, help, and support. So we have started this unique idea of starting a telephone helpline service where people from everywhere from the river, even if they are very closer to our facility or far, they can just ring us up, give us a call, and tell us they have spotted a dolphin, they have seen something which may disturb the dolphin, and this rescue helpline service has been magnificently helpful for us to increase our coverage to the area where we were observing or monitoring the dolphins. This was also a way for us to encourage people to get engaged with us for the awareness. And this has turned out to be a big success for us in Pakistan in terms of community engagement and dolphin rescue. So then, just to quickly give you an idea, apart from the overall direct dolphin rescue works, we do a lot of engagement work with the communities. We try to engage with the fishermen who basically catch a lot of fish from the Indus River. And that's the same resource which Indus dolphin also rely on, because it feeds on the fish and other species of concern. So we provided them, we engaged with them in alternate livelihood option where, they can learn to make something else, they can learn to something else, learn to produce something else, and this eventually reduces the pressure on the Indus River, and then gives more space and room for the Indus River dolphin to thrive and nourish. And then we have, as WWF has a bigger program which does a lot of work that supports the protection of the Indus River dolphin, its habitat, and many other areas which needs requirement of improvement. For example, I've mentioned the irrigation. So there is a lot of agricultural activities going on along the banks of the river, which also means there is a lot of poison, loss of pesticides which are sprayed on the crops. And these pesticides eventually with the water make their way into the river. And there are studies that has confirmed that, Indus River dolphin tend to pick up the fish which is poisoned with these pesticides, and eventually it ends up into the dolphin. So then how do we improve the practices with the farmers to make sure that, they are not using a lot of harmful pesticides, and they are making their agricultural practices eco-friendly, they are using less water? That is also another important aspect of work. And this is an outcome to this cumulative effort that we have in Pakistan, that Indus River dolphin is showing a positive sign in terms of the increasing in their population. But then there is a lot more than that. That is to do with the awareness, because Jill has rightly mentioned that this species is unique and there is nothing else like that. But then this is also gives, because people in Pakistan may not have a big opportunity to go into the wild and see a lot of wildlife. And Indus dolphin is one of the species which offers them a great opportunity to come to the river and see them, and to engage with people, with local communities, with the students from all over Pakistan. We have set up, with the support of and with the engagement of other departments, a lot of information centers at the Indus River. So the one that you are seeing right now is in Sakhar, and this is a center that we have been using for past 20 years until now to raise awareness, to engage with students, and to basically to make them a part of the dolphin conservation work. There are many more initiatives that we undertake, such as the Indus River. So this center, there is another picture of the center where we have these interesting boards made, and a lot of activities made circling around Indus River dolphin and its biology, for people to learn to understand that how gentle and how peaceful and how special creature it is, and why it is important for us to respect, love, and then care about these species. And then we have a lot of engagement programs to bring about this opportunity for students, for locals to be able to see this species. Jill has rightly mentioned it, that it's not an easy job for everybody to be able to see so many dolphins. So this dolphin ecotourism program is one such option, where we take around students into the boats, which are basically the fishermen's boat, but they have turned their livelihood into the ecotourism business. These are specially designed boats. So they'll sit in them, they'll watch around, and they'll spot the dolphins and learn about all the important characteristics in their habitat. And this has been a great resource for us to raise awareness and to engage with students and to develop this sense of ownership of this species, which is very unique to Pakistan. So this facility, basically this service is only available when the river has a low flow period, and on an average, we have over 700 people who are visiting only this 150-kilometer long stretch for the dolphin safari purposes. And then, of course, we continuously keep on engaging with the governments, with the capacity communities, with the other organizations who are working on the conservation in one way or another. We teach them, we keep on teaching them on, many ways to improve their fishing practices, how do they improve their livelihood, how do they improve their lifestyle so that it does not affect dolphin. Dolphin rescue is one of the things that we keep on building capacities of ourselves and also with the local communities, also the communities and fishermen in those parts of the Indus where we are not working, but so that, there is somebody there who is always helpful for the dolphins protection. So this is pretty much of the work that we have done. And I wanted to finish quickly with this picture from the last year's survey. This is just such a magnificent story that I just can't stop sharing with everybody. So this small thing in the circle that you see is basically a very, very tiny calf of the dolphin, perhaps a very newborn. So we were on a survey expedition and we just couldn't figure out for some time what it was. So it was a dolphin calf which was trying to learn to surface, which means coming onto the water surface and to breathe and going down. So we were observing it for some time, and the next moment what we see is that there was a mother at the same place. So it was the mother who was trying to teach the dolphin calf how to come to the surface and how to breathe. And this was quite a magical moment of my life because that's where I found that my bond with dolphins has gone so strong that they are my friends forever. So with this, I'll just finish my talk, and Gill and I are available to answer to the questions if you guys have any. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hamera. It's clear, your love for dolphins is very clear. It's awesome. All right, Miss Painter's class, I know your students have to go in a minute, so what we'll do is we'll go to you guys first. If you have 2 questions, you can come up and ask both. So.
Okay. It looks like we have no questions. We've just learned a whole bunch today.
Yeah, we did cover a lot of ground. You guys, we're going to see those questions. Well, thank you for joining us then.
And we're going to go ahead and say bye and say thank you so much to Gill and to Hamera. So say bye. Hi. So thank you.
Bye, guys.
All right. Well, in that case, we'll go to Mrs. DeRubis's class in New Rochelle, New York.
Hello. How did you get all those groups to cooperate? Was it hard?
Oh, here we go. So, Hamera, you're muted. If either one of you want to cover this?
Yes, I mean, I can do that. So what we have done is for these groups, because there are about 8 different organizations and institutions working. There is for the Indus Dolphin Conservation, we have got the Sindh Wildlife Department. We have got the Irrigation Department, which looks around all the water and irrigation system. There is an Environmental Protection Agency. There are local communities. So we have set up this network where we have, there is a person who sends out letters to everybody, ask them to come a meeting, and then once we have organized the meeting, so we designate a focal person, and then these people keep on coordinating and talking to each other on a daily basis and sometimes on a monthly basis. And we follow up on this to make sure that they do not break the contact.
Excellent. Gill, do you want to add anything else?
No, that's fine. I think Hamera covered that well.
Great. All right, we'll go to Miss Miles's class.
Who has a question? Okay, look up in here. Let's go. Okay.
How many dolphins have you caught?
Yeah, go ahead, guys.
Hamera?
Hi, guys. Yeah, how many dolphins have you guys caught?
How many have you caught, Hamera?
So we have not caught any dolphin, but yes, we have rescued about 135 alive. And these are the dolphins that we have securely released back into the river. But so far, there were 150 dolphins that since the year 1999 that were rescued from different locations. So we do not really catch them unless they are in trouble. So once they are in a trouble, which is basically if they are catch in a fishing net or maybe they are stuck somewhere in a smaller water pool, that's where we go, we lift them up and we rescue them and we bring them back into the main river.
Excellent. All right, let's head to Gill.
Hey, you're up.
How many dolphins do you think there was 100 years ago?
Oh, that's a great question. I'll answer that one, I guess. So, yeah, I guess we have this really interesting information about where they used to live, but we don't have really any information about how many there were. But our estimate now is about 2,000 in that central stretch of the river. So just if I was to make a guess, I would say that maybe 150 years ago, there might have been 5,000. I mean, it could, but it's really hard to know because the rivers have changed so much, you know, and none of us who are alive now, we don't really, we haven't seen what they used to be like. So that our knowledge is changing all the time. The world changes, and actually, you know, we don't have memory of what it used to be like. So we have to that's why we have to talk to older people to find out how things have shifted. So. But basically, the rivers are not big. So these dolphins, there were never thousands and thousands and thousands of them.
Out of curiosity, just a quick follow-up on that. When you've been talking to the older fishermen who asked when they last saw dolphins, did they tell you how many they saw as well?
No, not at all. I think even then they were probably not that common. But we got some fascinating stories. Really, I mean, some of these guys were just so interesting. Like one man told us that he was a young boy. He was maybe 12 years old, and he decided that he wanted to go to the other side of the river, and so he was going to swim. And he started swimming, and then he saw this dolphin, but he thought maybe it was a crocodile, and so he was really afraid, and he started trying to hit it with a stick. And then he realized that it was in fact a dolphin. So, and he was about 80 or 90, I think, when he was telling us this story from so long ago.
Outstanding. Hamera, do you want to follow up? You've been laughing the whole time. Is there anything else you'd like to share on that theme?
No, I could just, it's fascinating the stories that Gill shared. So in a recent survey, basically we've met a couple of old fishermen for the very same reason. And one of them has told us that he was once able to basically cover the entire stretch of the river by foot, and he was also excited to know how does the dolphin population move across the river. And then he was staying there for days and days, and eventually he figured out there was basically one individual of the dolphin that he could spot throughout the range. And it's just so interesting sometimes to know and meet with these people that how deep their knowledge is about the species and their association with it.
Excellent. For the classes that have joined us before or who will join us again, conservation, it's so interesting to hear the local stories. It's one of the big themes we consistently get back to. All right, so Miss Conway's class, if you guys want to come up, demute your mic, go right ahead, and we'll take a question. No hurry, take your time.
All right, here we go. Question. Were some dolphins sick?
Can you say that again?
Go ahead and say it. Were some dolphins sick? She wants to know if any of them
were sick. Yeah, guys.
That's a good question. Well, some of them were injured. So yes, I guess they were kind of sick. I mean, that picture that Hamera showed, one of them had an injury to its beak. And so they get hurt sometimes. They get hurt if they get caught in fishing nets. They get hurt if they're hit by boats. They do also get sicknesses a bit like us occasionally, things like flu. That sort of illness is something that dolphins might also suffer from. But our biggest worry, because we're trying to save them, is these injuries or when they get themselves stuck in places where there's not enough water. And then eventually they're going to die if we don't save them.
Is that a good answer, guys? Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, let's go to Miss Briggs's class. If you guys have a question, again, just come on up and demute. There's like so much excitement. It looks like there's lots of questions, possibly. Go right ahead. Yep.
What are the main predators of the dolphins?
Good question. So, did you guys catch that? What are the main predators they have? Do they have predators? Hamera, we'll start with you.
I'll let Gill answer this question. To my knowledge, only the human fishing nets are their predators.
Okay. What do they eat? Actually, so we'll do the opposite side of that question then. If they have no predators, what are they eating in the river? Hamera?
Is it Jill who's answering the question or me? Sorry,
Yeah,
I thought Jill.
passing along another question, which is like, what do they eat if they're in the river?
I started talking and then was not unmuted. So about predators, it's true. Hamera's spot on. There's no predators right now other than human beings, which is the biggest predator of all. But maybe in the past, things have changed a lot. So in the past, there used to be crocodiles, and there were all sorts of land mammals as well that no longer live there. So maybe when there were crocodiles, a crocodile might have taken a baby dolphin, but now there's no more crocodiles in the river. So they don't really have any predators, which is interesting. And they eat a whole variety of fish, shrimps, crabs, prawns, river prawns. They're real generalists. They eat whatever they can find, and sometimes quite big fish, and they don't chew. So they'll swallow the fish whole, down in one, and they can be quite big.
Excellent. All right, guys. We're going late, but what we'll do is if the classes have some quick questions, and if Hamera and Jill, if you guys can answer them quickly, we can get through one more from each class. So let's go to Mrs. Darubas' class again. Take your time, all good.
Sorry. Would you ever redistribute the dolphins that are in the small area to a larger area?
Good question.
Thank you very much for asking this question. You'll make a great dolphin biologist in the future because you are exactly thinking the same way as we are nowadays. So yes, this is one of the possible options that people who work on the Indus River dolphin conservations are thinking of for quite some time. And Gill was one of them who has basically pitched this idea initially. So we are considering this option to identify a couple of areas in the upper reaches of the Indus River, which may have the similar characteristics or same characteristics where dolphins can live happily. So we are just in the process of developing some list of the things which we may find suitable for dolphins, and then maybe for the future, if some dolphins that we could rescue, we could place there just to see if they are happy with the new place, and if they are, then we would like to maybe shift a few more there. Jill, would you like to add something into it?
No, that was perfect.
Awesome. All right, then we'll go to Mrs. Miles' class. Yes. Question?
Sorry, just for a second. I would like to say thank you. We have to go. Sorry.
Bye. Oh, you have to go?
Thank you. Bye, dudes.
All right, so Ms. Miles' class. Any questions?
Okay.
Let's see yourself.
Okay. Is it related to the Amazon River dolphin? Are they related? Are they related to the River Amazon dolphin?
Excellent question, guys. So, Jill, do you want to start with that one? Oh.
Yeah, I'll answer that one. As I'm really impressed that you even know about the Amazon River dolphins, because most people don't. And the Amazon River dolphins are super cool because they're pink. And when the river floods, they swim through the trees in the flooded forest. And basically, no, they're not very closely related at all, which is another really interesting thing. So there's dolphins in the Amazon, and there was also a dolphin in the Yangtze River in China. And then there's dolphins in the Indus and the Ganges River. And actually, none of them are particularly closely related to each other. They're all quite different.
Excellent. All right, well, we'll go back to Guelph. We're in the home stretch here, guys. We can do this.
Go, Chase.
Go, Chase.
When a dolphin is stranded, how much time do you have to rescue it?
Good question.
How much time do we have to rescue it?
Is there a time?
Yeah, so it really depends, because if the dolphin is stranded into a small water body, and then we really have to watch it, observe it, because sometimes they are able to move back into the river themselves, but sometimes they just don't. So that is when, you know, we keep on monitoring them, and sometimes it's very easy to capture it easily and take it back into the river. Sometimes it takes about months, like the one that I showed you in the picture. We were monitoring the individual for about 6 months time, and then we were sure that basically it's really stuck and it doesn't really move out of the water, and that's when we rescued. And it also depends upon the level of water that we have, because if the water level is very, very high, it's very difficult to go into the water, capture the dolphin, bring it back safely without to injuring the animals. But yes, it's an emergency situation when a dolphin is stuck somewhere in a fishing net. That's where you really have to rush to the place to make sure that you cut the net to release the dolphin immediately, so that, you know, it doesn't die because of it.
Excellent.
Can I add to that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So when you catch a dolphin, so first of all, catching a dolphin is really difficult. It is not an easy thing to do at all, because they don't want to be caught, even though they might die in these very small pools. The instinct is to avoid the nets, and so it can take several hours of fishermen and conservationists trying to catch these dolphins before we actually catch them and have them in our hands. But then sometimes they've gone quite a long way from the river, so then we have to move them in the ambulance that Hamera showed you, and sometimes it can take like 5 or 6 hours to drive in the ambulance. And so this is where like these animals are mammals, so they breathe air. So they can actually survive out of the water for quite a long time, as long as they don't get too hot, as long as they can continue to breathe, and as long as their skin doesn't get too dry. And they have to stay out of the sun. So we keep them wet with dripping water on the body. We monitor the breathing, drive slowly and gently, don't make too much noise. And they seem like, I mean, they do fine over 5 or 6 hours.
All right, well, then we'll end off with one last question. So Miss Conway's class, if you want to come up and deep your mic and end this off.
What's the usual lifespan for Indus River dolphin?
Do you want to take this question, Gill?
Sure. So the question of how do we even know how old they are? That's the first question. How do we know how old they are in order to be able to tell how long they live? And so you can't just look at one and know how old it is. You can kind of say, okay, this is a small one, so it's probably a baby, and this is a big one, so it's a grown-up. But to actually know the number of years, you can't ask it. So the only way we can actually tell how old they are is that we can take a tooth once they're dead, and then you can cut the tooth in half, and there's rings on the tooth like on a tree, and so you can count the rings on the tooth. And so actually I did one of these studies not long ago. We got the teeth from about 50 dead dolphins, and the oldest one we found was 36. I think they probably get older than 36, but still, it's quite old.
Excellent. All right, so guys, what we do at the end of every hangout is I'm going to demute every class's microphone. And so Mrs. Join me in saying a big thank you. Okay. Thank you so much for joining us, Jill and Hamera. That was wonderful.
Thank you, guys. That was great.
Thank you. It was